Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. As you can tell, the tone in my voice is not too happy, and this woman really is trying to push people's buttons. In this picture, I hope people recognize, well, at least for Americans, who that person is that Meghan is looking so doe-eyed with. And that's Kamala Harris's husband. Yes, our Vice President of the United States. So my question is, what the F are these two doing speaking to the husband of our Vice President? Oh, probably trying to weasel their way in to figuring out how they can get Meghan into our government, which is uh, danger, danger, abort mission, abort mission. Part of me is so exhausted talking about this because we all know their underlying mission is to subvert the Constitution and violate American civil rights and trying to abolish free speech, essentially wanting to control the internet. But another part of me feels so enraged that they continue to keep pulling this BS. And I'm going to show you something next that's probably going to light a fire in many people and continue to seek fighting to keep our rights and freedoms, because what this couple has been doing is participating in what we have been seeing around the world in trying to control and censor free speech online. Now, this Fugazi Archewell Public Charity has put out this ridiculous insight report showcasing the work that Archewell has done supposedly over the last year, which really the majority of the work has been done over the last 6 months. But, we're not going to split hairs on this one. They put together this report, and instead of talking about all the other areas of compassion and action that they claim to have been impacting, it's now all about policing social media and protecting the youth from the mental harms that it has caused. Now, when you look through this BS report, it is filled with flowery language around how social media impacts the youth and the harms, with really no sources of credibility, in my opinion. And we're going to go through it, and we're going to really look through exactly what is happening here and what they are trying to do. Now, we all know that these two have been on a mission to censor the internet because they can't take any of the criticism or the truth to come out about their manipulation, their deceit, and their purposeful infliction of hurt onto family members as well as people online that they don't know. Let's remind everyone what Meghan and her goons did to Yankee Wally, as so eloquently said by Avid Gardner 3 days ago. If you've seen this video, please feel free to fast forward about 7 minutes.
Now, this video may have some triggering things in it for some of you. This video for me is largely about Yankee Wally, my friend Yankee Wally, who was all but broken by henchmen connected to Meghan and Harry, namely Christopher Boozy, who created not one but two vicious reports doxing Yankee Wally and having a go at her. For those of you who don't know who Yankee Wally was or is, she is a person, a real person. She lives in Wales alone with her cats and a hedgehog. She's 68 years old. She's one of the most fabulous people I've ever met in my life. And I first discovered her because she had a YouTube channel where she dared to question things that Markle was saying and doing. She dared. She never swore. She never threatened. She never hurt anybody. She was just a lady in Wales with her cats talking about the British royal family. And Wally has the same birthday as our late Majesty, so that was a big connection for Wally. And what I'm going to do in this video, it's actually only 19 seconds long, and I wouldn't normally do this, but Wally was bullied off what was then known as Twitter. She is back on Twitter now, but she's been bullied into silence on the internet generally by henchmen like Christopher Boozy, who, by the way, featured in Meghan and Harry's Netflix docu-series, of which they had full editorial control. They chose to have that man on their series. They gave him a dedicated segment where he just lied through his teeth. He's the one who created the report. He's connected with another online troll called Sarah Data, who targets people. These are all connected to Meghan Markle, who sits on that stage and has the gall to tell everybody about online safety for kids. Wow. And Wally had a YouTube channel, which the Sugars mass reported and had taken down. She came back about 4 or 5 times, and each time they bullied her off the internet. And the last time was this summer, just past. Now, I was in touch with Wally a lot. She goes into her shell, and I haven't heard from her in months. And I wouldn't normally do this because I see it as an invasion of privacy, but I think it's really important people understand. And so I'd like to play you just a segment, a tiny fragment of how Wally felt about the treatment she received from Christopher Boozy and the online Sugars and henchmen. Right, this is just a fragment. Now, for those of you that love Wally like me, this was months ago. Wally is fine. She's just wants to be off the internet for a bit. I haven't spoken to her in months, but it is not abnormal after one of these attacks for her to just take a breath and sit back. Okay, so when you hear this, bear in mind, this is not her today. This was her in the immediate aftermath of her most recent channel being taken down. And also, before I play it, for people on X, watch the comment space. Bring forth, Sugars, your disgusting threats, such as wanting to put a bullet in my skull and my husband's skull. My husband, who's dealing with stage 3 cancer. Yeah, full of kindfulness and mindfulness and compassionateness, says the lady in the toilet roll on the stage with a visibly damaged mental husband rubbing his leg. And then I shall go on to tell you about the threatening phone call that Dolphin Safari received in the middle of the night last night. Again, don't worry about me, don't worry about Graham, and actually I'd go as far as to say don't worry about Wally. She is tough. She is tough, okay? So anybody out there, I don't want you to think, Wally's on the verge. This, what you're about to hear, was in the immediate aftermath this summer when the bully Sugars like Boozy and Sarah Data and the other trolls who love and support Meghan, so they say, although I deeply suspect they're being paid or they're mass bots.
I was so happy, and I showed in my videos I was happy. Now I'm not happy anymore. I can't keep putting on this false fake that I'm happy when I feel as though I've been so targeted. And
Listen to that, Meghan. Listen to that, Meghan supporters. So when I lured you out to show your hand and what you are, and the death threats to me and Graham the other day, which will remain pinned on my X account. Yes, they will remain pinned. Much as you'd like to pretend you never said that, or you pretend, oh, we were just joking, or you like to pretend it was a ploy to get yourselves arrested in order to get me and Trevor arrested. Oh yeah, Trevor Coult. Now, he's a tough guy, but boy, he's taken some trolling from Meghan fans. So Meghan sits on a stage in a toilet roll and tells everybody she gives a crap about anybody's mental health on the internet when her followers are capable of that, and she will not renounce those followers. That's sickening. And I'd like to add that if it wasn't for people like you guys who question the motives and the actions of Meghan Markle and what's going on, the world would be a much, much darker place. I think the only thing that Meghan and I probably agree about is that, yes, there should be some legislation and control globally to stop people using bots and paid troll farms to either push a relatively harmless narrative or, on the other extreme, an extremely dangerous narrative, as we are seeing with the conflict in the Middle East. This is a spectrum. I don't believe that bots or troll farms should be allowed to sway public influence and opinion during any democratic election. So I am in agreement with Markle about that. I think where Meghan and I conflict and do not agree is what she would like is control, so everybody worship her and do as they're told.
I hope Fiona doesn't mind that I shared this video because I think it ties in perfectly with the hypocrisy of this insight report that is being presented here, which should make everybody infuriated once you read between the lines. So I am going to read some of what they printed in this BS report so you can see what I'm talking about. And also, if anyone tries to copyright the fact that I've screenshotted on my device a report that is public and is available because it is a public charity, just know that you're going to lose because that is our right. And because it is a public charity, it should be available to the public and shared. So there is no copyright on it. So here's what marketing and PR looks like when it comes to Meghan and Harry's Archewell Public Charity. It says, our core purpose at the Archewell Foundation, aka public charity, is quite simply to do good. Mental health and our collective well being underpins all that we do and directly feeds into our three main pillars: uplifting communities, building a better online world, and restoring trust in information. We do this both locally and globally, inspiring positive change with lasting solutions. Funny how this mission statement that they have is so different to the mission statement that they had when they put on their 2021 filing, and initially when they filed for this 501c3. Anyhow, I continue on. This report speaks of all three pillars of our work at the Archewell Foundation, aka public charity, taking public donations, and focuses on the pillar of how we are helping build a better online world. Our expert led research has involved engaging with parents and young people to gain a greater understanding of how social media shapes today's youth, particularly pertaining to their mental health and overall well being. We acknowledge that a young person's well being is influenced by various factors, yet compelling evidence suggests that social media platforms play a pivotal role, and it's evident that not enough is being done to protect young people's well being or to help them manage their experience online. Right, so that's why they need Archewell Foundation, aka public charity, aka Meghan Markle, to restrict what you can say and not say online. This is what it all boils down to. And this crusade of Meghan and Harry is really about them. It has nothing to do with helping the youth. It continues on to say, as this report lays out, which has been authored by our key advisor and a leading public opinion researcher and online harms expert, Jiore Craig, we have heard firsthand that living a life online is having an impact on young people and families are struggling to manage. Let's take a look at who this Jiore Craig, who actually is responsible for predominantly this whole entire report. Now, Jiore Craig, I don't know if that's how you pronounce this person's name, and I don't know whether to call this person a he, she, they, it, unicorn, dog, donkey. But this person in their bio is part of the radical left progressive movement, in which all the things that have been destroying our communities as well as destroying our civilization as human beings, this person is really a pro advocate for, especially around the censorship. Now, in this bio, it says, Joy Craig is a resident senior fellow at ISD with focus on digital integrity. Her work focuses on safeguarding democracy globally and the wider impact of online harms on society. Jory advises global leaders on mitigating online harms, including work to advance tech policy reform and tech accountability at a global scale. UN supporter, WF supporter, I bet is in her cards. She has extensive international experience, previously spending 8 years helping elected officials, political leaders, media organizations, academic institutions, and civic society organizations across 5 continents to research, measure, and effectively mitigate the impact of disinformation and influence operations on public opinion and elections. Now, Jiore Craig has decimated her credibility simply by attaching her name to the Archewell Public Charity, in which we all know that Meghan and Harry are super spreaders of misinformation, as well as causing division and harms online to people. So, everything that's being said in this report kind of really holds no weight anymore if these two continue to keep pushing being safe and protecting people when they themselves are a source of harming people online. Two things that raise red flags for me on this person is one, she is headquartered or based in London, UK, so why is she meddling in affairs here in the United States and our policies? And two, she is aligned with, as you can see here, many things that deal with political figures as well as elections. So you clearly see that Meghan and Harry do have an angle in which they're trying to really affect our policies, which then undermines our Constitution. Once again, we go back to having a UK prince on American soil trying to affect our Constitution, and nobody is taking action against this guy. Now, we do have an update on the Heritage Foundation's case against the United States government on Harry's visa, and we'll get to that in another video. But for our purposes here, I want you to see how this couple are deceiving the public by focusing on the youth when the underlying, or as they like to use the word, the underpin, is really about censoring Americans and taking away people's freedom of speech and controlling it. And I'm going to tell you this right now that with the case of Missouri versus Biden going on right now, we must watch that closely because what happens with that court case is going to dictate what happens to these two. And I do see in the couple's future a class action lawsuit. But going back to this BS inside report, now keep in mind this preface was written by James Holt, you know, the ass kisser to Meghan and Harry. He writes, our mission is to support those parents and caregivers who are desperately trying to navigate their child's virtual lives and to explore how we as a community can support one another in developing solutions to empower families and uplift our collective mental well being. Social media serves as a double edged sword. For many, we've heard how it provides community and gives us a unique path to self discovery. Well, what did this couple do when they took away Yankee Wally's community? I mean, really, the hypocrisy is like bleeding out of this report. It can invigorate, entertain, and inspire. Yet, while it can encourage greatness, it can also facilitate harm. Yes, exactly, to deplatforming someone and isolating and ostracizing them from their community, like what they did to Yankee Wally. Sorry, I'm just so enraged when I see the bullshit that they're trying to push out and convince people that this is what they're trying to do in order to continue this grift that they have going on by exploiting vulnerable people. Yet, while it can encourage greatness, it can also facilitate harm. As one of our young participants so brilliantly puts it, social media is like a knife. Use it as a chef or use it as a criminal. Well, okay, you can do that, but I think a lot of this has to do with how people are raised. I mean, part of the problem here is the parents' responsibility to play more of a role in their children's online life. I think there's a fundamental problem by leaving it up to the government to dictate what you can and cannot see. That affects everyone. But then again, what we're seeing here is that they're using children as the smokescreen for the underlying root of what they're really trying to do, which is control everyone. So, what you'll see throughout this dangerous report for censorship is all about exploiting and pulling on the heartstrings of parents who have lost a child, something that Meghan and Harry know absolutely nothing about. James Holt and Shauna Nepp continue writing, the most emotional conversations we had were with families who endured the loss of a loved one or who have to face every day while managing a child's serious mental health issue. In the face of such harrowing grief and difficulty, these parents show remarkable resilience and an inconceivable drive to turn their pain into purpose, or in Archewell's tagline, turning your pain into their profit. We have the tools and interventions at our fingertips to change the course of history and do better for our young people. But we need support from policymakers, public health officials, and regulators and tech companies themselves in order to ameliorate the current online landscape. So you see here, again, this is pushing policy and regulation around restricting people's freedom of speech and expression. I think there definitely needs to be some regulation, but when it comes from being pushed by a couple of grifters who purposely spread misinformation and hurt people online, you can't take this report seriously. And you don't want them to have that kind of power to then be able to control what people say about the truth. And this is why anything that this couple touches cannot be trusted, as well as the people that they're engaging with. Let me finish off this long preface that Ass Kisser James Holt and Shauna Nepp have written. Despite many efforts underway around the world to make the internet a safer place, aka censorship online and control speech, our work to date suggests that no matter the country, background, or socioeconomic class, families yearning to keep their children safe online remains universal. In order to account for differences across culture, language, and standards for social media use, it will take a global effort to make this happen. Well, yes, that's why we're seeing all these Western countries at the same time trying to hurry up and pass these regulations. As we all know, US elections are just around the corner, and then God forbid, we can't see what happened in 2016 happen again, because that will mess up the globalists' ultimate plan of population reduction. Anyhow, continuing on, allegedly. The mental health of young people and how we protect our children online is one of the most critical issues of our time. So I'm guessing that the mental health of elderly people is not as important. I mean, obviously, for this couple, it might be, considering what they did to accelerate the deaths of Prince Philip as well as the late monarch. It appears that, yeah, old people don't count. Anyhow, we are proud to share this report, which provides the first look at our vital insight sessions with young people and families. It previews the work we have been actively doing and sets out what we believe needs to happen to better support parents and young people to drive reforms that are crucially needed. Yes, push policy. This view is anchored only in the work of policy experts, advocacy groups, and families themselves. When we look to solutions, the Archewell Public Charity is stepping up and taking a crucial role by piggybacking off of the work of other organizations that are on a mission to do this. That's my opinion. Over the coming months, we are excited to share our work, aka other people's work, and put our name on it, and help shine a light on the many incredible campaigners and organizations that are doing such valuable work. In other words, other organizations will do the work while Archewell Public Charity takes the credit. Yeah. So, in this report, 35 pages of nonsense that was written by somebody else and using someone else's research, they have managed to scrap together photos from the most recent outing or gate crashing that they did with this Mental Health World Day. When you look through this garbage that they're going to have the left to liberal progressive media push, as they always do as propaganda, you'll start to see a common theme. You'll start to see random quotes being thrown out there with no backing. You'll see statistics with no source of where the information came from, as well as you'll see Meghan's ugly face almost in every single one of these photos. In addition, you'll notice that most likely, majority of whatever work that they're claiming that they did over the year was not done by Meghan and Harry. It was done by ass kisser James Holt and the minions that they have working at Archewell Public Charity. A lot of this work was not done by this couple, so don't be fooled in what they're presenting here. Take, for example, this photo. Ass kisser James Holt is front and center, Meghan and Harry nowhere to be found. Out of all the fluffery puff and bullshit smoke and mirrors that they put in this report, this is the most important piece to what they're really trying to do. And it says, meanwhile, in the UK, policymakers finally passed the online safety bill this autumn after years of debate. The bill comes as lawmakers attempt to apply additional layers of accountability to tech companies after a coroner's report determined the death of 14-year-old Molly Russell was a result of the negative effects of social media and called for an inquiry into the role of social media. Oh, really? I don't think that that's 100% accurate, but we'll leave it there and contest that later. But here, I want to continue to keep raising this point because I don't think we're making enough noise about it. We would be stupid to think if King Charles is not aware of the efforts that Meghan and Harry are doing here in the US to undermine our Constitution around our First Amendment. We'd be stupid to think that these two are not in contact with the palace, and we'd be stupid to think that that website is not being changed because it takes years to change something that clearly states that this couple is still honoring their duty to the monarchy. Let me finish this out because this is going to infuriate many. Legislative efforts across the EU, UK, and US seeks to put guardrails in place for tech companies, but doing so is proving complicated. Yes, because we all know what you're trying to do. Protections for privacy and free speech, transparency by way of data access, the role of national security, justice for victims of harm, and the task of establishing product design safety standards are all competing and necessary features of any accountability efforts. The question of adequate content moderation sparks polarizing debate, while research highlights ways in which young people are still easily accessing graphic and dangerous content online. Around the world, parents, teachers, school districts, and young people are voicing concern about the role of technology and putting forward policy proposals to rein it in the form of open letters, lawsuits, and campaigns. The rollout of new forms of generative AI is putting even more pressure on accountability measures to keep up with the pace of innovation. Now, isn't it funny that Kamala Harris, our vice president, has been put on the task force for regulation around AI? Could this be a possible way for Meghan trying to get herself into the government office? I thought Kamala Harris can't stand Meghan, but anyhow, we go back to this. They outline exactly the complications that they have faced, aka pushback from the public saying that this is about censorship. This is not about kids. If we so cared about the kids, then why is nobody addressing the situation with the human trafficking that is happening on a daily basis, and the United States being the biggest source of the industry? Oh, of course, they don't want people talking about that. And, it could possibly be contributing to this whole trying to clamp down on the secrets that these rich elites are trying to hide. Meghan and Harry are so focused on the kids, especially Meghan and her women bullshit empowerment and going after these vulnerable girls. You would think that this would be a topic that she could jump on. Well, wait for it. It's soon to come. I'm sure once Hollywood starts picking up on it, trying to backpedal their use of these innocent people, they're going to end up taking a stance in some way. We just have to wait and see when the bandwagon starts a rolling, then Meghan and Harry are going to jump on it. And it looks like the majority of the work or stuff that's written in this report has been compiled within the last week since this World Mental Health Day that they did. Majority of the photos come from New York and some of the quotes come from New York. So likely they're trying to stretch out this and give off the impression that Archewell really is a legitimate brand. And my guess it's because of this trademark filing that they have that's coming up. I think it's their last ditch effort. But in any case, we can see behind the smoke and mirrors and that they are using other people's work in order to make it their own, which is a lot of bullshit. And you got to look and read through the lines, but this is really about pushing this policy. Meghan even said it and stumbled. They know that what they're doing is so deceitful and manipulative, all to control the internet and to get people to stop criticizing Megan and hurting her feelings. Well, listen, they didn't care about the feelings of their family. They didn't care the feelings of the people online that they deplatformed and removed communities. In the end of this report, they're telling you what they're going to be doing. They're going to be investing in educating, which means brainwashing, and then the focus is heavily on the need for policy, in which they say laws and governments need to reflect parents and children's interests. Parents want to see better laws that mandate safety standards and require risk assessments. Risk assessments, aka profiling, social credit scores, and now this is part of the online safety bill. And, I'm going through this safety bill and recognizing that this is all about surveilling its people and suppressing its speech. It says, and require risk assessments for social media companies. Others want to see laws that simply keep up with the pace at which technology evolves and impacts society. These laws, some of which are already in place in the EU, could impose penalties when companies violate safety standards and laws so that they have an incentive to follow through on their promises. In addition to the need for public policy, social media companies need to invest in robust trust and safety resources to enforce their own policies and change those policies when they fail. Both public policies and internal platform policy enforcement should take particular care to aggressively tackle current gaps leading young people to access graphic and violent content in online spaces intended to keep them safe. Well, what about the regular people? Don't regular people who are not youth, and these two assholes give themselves away by showing just how current this report was written, as they state it in the next line, where it says, as one mother in our insight session shared, in the wake of the current conflict in the Middle East, like literally, this thing with Israel and Palestine happened on October 7th, right? So this was happening during this session that they were holding at Mental Health Day, which I don't buy for a second that they have been holding these sessions all year long. I think this was compiled in the last 30 days and they slapped this together in order to make themselves look like they were busy. But it says, as one mother in our insight session shared, in the wake of the current conflict in the Middle East, where disinformation has run rampant and uncensored graphic content has sped rapidly, the quote is stated, I have received emails from my child's school advising us to remove social media platforms from any child's device because the platforms do not have the capacity to remove or censor the harmful content which is being spread and which children, and adults frankly, should not have to witness. It's too harmful. And in parentheses, because of how the platforms have slashed their teams responsible for that monitoring and safeguarding. And you can see that Meghan and Harry are taking a direct swipe at Twitter because Twitter has clamped down on all the bots and all the liberal progressives and celebrities trying to bolster these false and fake narratives. Again, Meghan and Harry are responsible, they themselves, of spreading misinformation and harm online. Like, how do we not know that Archewell didn't make up these quotes that they scattered throughout this stupid report? It says, you can do everything right, and it can still not be enough. Says, a parent whose child lost their life as a result of social media. Now, I thought Megan wanted to give voices to the parents who lost their children and tell their stories. But something tells me that this quote came directly from Megan because let's not forget in the Netflix mockumentary, she was saying, oh, I did everything I could to make them proud, but it still was not enough. Remember that? Yeah. Or how about this fluff that was probably made up by Megan herself? You kind of fall down the rabbit hole slowly. It was just small raindrops until you're drowning in the ocean. I couldn't go to my parents because they wouldn't know what I'm talking about. Says, in quotes, a young person in New York. So I'm guessing maybe they made something up at the Marcy Labs, but they didn't want to put somebody's name to it because most likely it has no validity. And finally, at the very end of this report, you would think that about the author who did this report would be in the very beginning, but no, once again, Meghan and Harry choose to deceive the public, thinking that nobody's going to get through to the very end of this 34-page bullshit document. But it does say here, listen to this deceptive word salad. It says here, Jiore Craig is a globally recognized leader at the intersection of democracy, public opinion, and online harms. She is the founder of her own consultancy working with public figures, policymakers, civil rights leaders, and politicians to navigate the impact of tech on society. Craig specializes in representing public interests when designing strategies to mitigate online harm. She has helped dozens of leaders and hundreds of organizations confront challenges presented by the digital age, especially in the context of global elections and the impact of technology on mental health. Newsflash, everyone, Craig is a senior advisor to the Archewell Foundation, a resident senior fellow at the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, and a senior advisor at Emily's List. She is a member of Issue One's Bipartisan Council for Responsible Social Media. In 2022, she testified for the U.S. Congressional House Administration Committee hearing on foreign and domestic sources of disinformation. Her work has been cited in the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Atlantic, Time Magazine, the New Yorker, Bloomberg, NBC, all the liberal, left, progressive media outlets pushing this garbage. Okay, so we look at this. She is supposedly a senior advisor, but put all the way at the end of this report with no photo. Do you not see how shady and manipulative Meghan and Harry are being around this? The ultimate goal of this couple is to interfere with our Constitution. Make no mistake, folks, but Archewell Foundation is a part of this censorship industrial complex being backed by Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, who is a UK prince on US soil trying to interfere with our constitutional rights. The fact that the king knows exactly what has been going on because every day this couple's in the news and still has the dastardly duo on the website serving the monarch makes me believe that the monarchy is somehow involved with this. And you cannot fault people who go to the website and read with their own eyes, interpreting it as such. The work that Harry is doing here in undermining our Constitution directly reflects back onto the monarchy, as it says here, continuing to honor their duty to the king, the Commonwealth, and their patronages, meaning their duty back to the institution. We'd be stupid to think that these globalists care about people's democracy. We all know that King Charles was part of this WEF, so was William, and so is Harry and the rest of the lot. So, I'm not saying anything negative about Prince William and Catherine. I'm going to keep them to the side for a moment. But we cannot ignore that King Charles has been a part of this 2030 agenda from the get-go. We need to stop turning a blind eye and pretend that conversations are not happening behind closed doors with the king and other political figures. And let me make this clear. I don't care what the king does in the UK with the UK government. That is not my concern. My concern is that his son, who is listed on the website as if he is serving his duty to the king, is over here in the United States meddling in our politics. That's the big problem for me. So I'm going to continue to keep calling out King Charles for keeping this dastardly duo on the website for the mere fact that they're trying to take away our civil rights. We did not fight a war to have this come back full circle. America does not bow to a king. And if this is behind the scenes puppetry, then we need to make a stink about it. Slowly, people are waking up to seeing what has been going on, and I fear that it might be too late if we stay quiet and we don't continue to make this noise. So please, guys, definitely share this video everywhere. I think it's important that people need to see the continued hypocrisy as well as the real agenda of Meghan and Harry, and to push back against these media outlets that continue to keep pushing their propaganda. But definitely leave your thoughts below. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. And as always, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
I was such a fraud.